Every year, the HACR Symposium gathers together the most influential diversity stakeholders dedicated to Hispanic inclusion in corporate America today. Hispanic leaders, Fortune 500 executives, ERG leaders, and diversity and human resource professionals all gather for this one-of-a-kind experience. Immerse yourself in exclusive seminars and networking events hosted by a hand-picked group of influencers, leading executives, and elite Fortune 500 CEOs. Come grow with us as a professional, and come join our ever-expanding community.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for today's webinar. My name is Dr. Lizette Garcia, and I'm the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer at HACR. I will be your moderator today. We're very excited for today's discussion. We are joined by some key ERG leaders representing some of the most successful groups in the country. Groups that have figured out not only how to serve their communities and colleagues, but also their businesses. Our panelists have joined us today to discuss what their groups are doing in the wake of the global COVID-19 pandemic and the larger social justice issues we are facing in the US. Before we get started, I'd like to welcome one of our co-host sponsors to give some welcome remarks. PepsiCo has been a longtime supporter of HACR, and they deserve a huge thank you for their partnership and for their commitment to Hispanic inclusion. To give a few remarks on behalf of PepsiCo, we welcome Veronica Riojas, Vice President of Category Insights and Advanced Analytics. Welcome, Veronica.
Thank you. Good afternoon. We at PepsiCo recognize that our Black and Brown communities are being disproportionately impacted by health and economic challenges that stem from the COVID pandemic. In response, we are donating $7 million to support the recovery efforts of these communities most in need. Through partnerships with Unidos US, the Urban League, and other organizations, we will be providing food, education assistance, job training, and economic aid in some of the hardest hit metro areas, including Los Angeles, Dallas, Denver, Miami, and Chicago. We are proud to support our Latino communities and have a short video to highlight this critical COVID initiative.
At PepsiCo, we're proud to be part of the Latino community. It's vibrant, passionate, resilient, and always moving forward, even in the face of hardship. We know this because, like you, we live and work here. We see the energy, the smiles, and the drive of our people. That's why we've partnered with Unidos US to support nearly 300 local community organizations. We'll provide meals for seniors and families in need, helping them get the medical care they seek, and do our part to ensure our community thrives. Because it's about people. It's about our community. It's about all of us. Together is how we get through this.
In addition to our COVID recovery efforts, PepsiCo announced yesterday that we are investing over $400 million to lift up and support our Black communities through this time of elevated social injustice. This announcement marks the first of many initiatives PepsiCo will be implementing to support our diverse cohorts and equality within our company and across the US. Thank you to HACR for the opportunity to be with you today for this first ever virtual forum.
Thank you, Veronica, and thank you again to PepsiCo for your continued support. I'd also like to recognize our co-host, Target. Target has been a longtime partner of HACR and over the years has supported HACR's leadership and professional development programs, our annual symposium, and our research efforts. We thank them for their support, partnership, and commitment to our work and the Hispanic community. Thank you to Target. And thank you to PepsiCo for your continued support. Together, we work to achieve our mutual goal of greater diversity and Hispanic inclusion. All right, a little housekeeping now before we get the conversation started. Everyone is muted and will remain that way for the duration of the webinar. If you are experiencing any technical issues, please send us a message using the questions box in your GoToWebinar control panel. Someone from the team will try to assist you as soon as possible. If you have any questions for the panelists, please type them into the questions box at any time, and we'll try to address as many of them as possible during the Q&A portion of the webinar. This webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be emailed to all webinar registrants within 24 hours. All right, that's it. So now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's panelists. Recognized as one of the 50 most influential Latinos and part of Atlanta's 40 under 40, Giovanni Jerez is both energetic, bold, unapologetic servant leader. He founded the Hispanic Corporate Council of Atlanta, facilitating the collaboration and partnership of 43 BRGs and ERGs, and currently serves as the national president for Hacemos, AT&T's ERG for Latinos, with 10,000 plus members across 41 chapters. And for his day job, he's chief of staff in the marketing organization for AT&T. Please welcome Giovanni. Hey, Giovanni. Our next panelist is Bank of America's Senior Vice President, Senior Relationship Manager, Shirley Morejon. Shirley is responsible for managing a portfolio of clients for whom the bank consults on global treasury and commercial lending needs. She's the enterprise co-chair for Bank of America's employee network, the Hispanic Latino Organization for Leadership and Advancement, HOLA, which has over 16,000 members in 38 chapters across the U.S. She's been nominated for various awards, including HACR's Young Hispanic Corporate Achievers, Bank of America's Women's Leadership Program, and Market President nominee for the Tampa Bay Business Journal Top Leaders Under 40. Please welcome Shirley. Next, we have Bristol Myers Squibb's VP of External Manufacturing Quality, Evelyn Marchany Garcia. Evelyn was born and raised in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and has been working in the U.S. since 2013. She has over 25 years of professional experience in the pharmaceutical industry, and aside from her current role at BMS, leading the quality organization for the contract manufacturers BMS partners with around the world, Evelyn is one of the Latina leaders of the Global Leadership Team and an active member of various employee resource groups. She has actively supported and enabled a diverse environment where everyone can bring his or her whole self to work. Her career and leadership style was recently featured in 2019 by Hispanic Executive Magazine. Check out her story online later when you get a chance. Please welcome Evelyn. And last, but certainly not least, please welcome back Veronica Riojas, PepsiCo's Vice President of Category Insights and Advanced Analytics. Veronica leads the Walmart Category Management and Advanced Analytics team and focuses on building industry-leading capabilities in the areas of category advisorship, space automation, consumer insights, and tech-enabled advanced analytics to influence internal and external strategic growth planning cycles. She also currently plays a leadership role in elevating diversity and inclusion agenda at PepsiCo as the national chair for Adelante, their Latino-focused employee resource group. Welcome, Veronica. So welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us here today. I thought the best question to kind of kick off our conversation with is one that asks about what your ERGs are doing to support employees during the COVID-19 pandemic. So who'd like to kick us off?
I can kick us off. So for us, this has been a time when we've really come together as an ERG, and it's very needed, right? Our focus as an ERG is on our people, our culture, and our community. And we've leveraged this opportunity to bring all three of those pillars together. And we're doing that by amplifying our communication, really highlighting the support we're providing within our communities, right? And highlighting those opportunities for us to engage. We're also sharing messages of hope and sharing perspectives and stories of perseverance, right, through these times. We're leveraging technology because we are all living in this virtual world now through COVID to create virtual connections, having virtual breakfast gatherings, kind of maintaining that sense of community through this, even though we are not physically together, keeping that connection throughout our day-to-day activity. And then we've also created safe space forums, town halls, and held these recently with our membership and our senior leaders to give them an opportunity to share their perspectives, their feelings, the things that they are seeking from our organization in terms of support with us as Adelante leadership and our leadership at the senior levels, so that their voices can be heard and that they can feel the support throughout their organization. And we've received a lot of positive feedback from the membership based on these activities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Evelyn, you want to go?
Yes, please. So in Bristol Myers Squibb, one of the things that we really look after is to protect the health and well-being of our patients and also of our employees and the workforce. And we have a model where we have, 8 different PBRGs, People and Business Resources Group, that are coming together during this situation, COVID-19, and are enabling the business along with the senior leaders of the organization to provide support not only to our employees, but also to our patients, and making sure that the medications that they need are available to them at all times. We're also looking into support our underrepresented groups, specifically the most impacted ones, which are the Latino community and also the Black community, in providing them with resources to support in case they have lost their health insurances, and how we can make available their medications to them. On an employee side, active communication and collaboration across the entire leadership of the organization to protect and create the right environment for people to come back to work whenever it's the right time to do so, and reacting and promptly into this crisis where many people didn't know what to do. As a global organization, we have multiple different elements that impact by COVID-19 on those areas, and providing the tools and the mechanisms to adapt and adjust the policies that allow our employees to continue to come to work, to feel supported, including all those elements associated with maintaining your self-health, to ensure that in this situation where we tend to work more and more available hours, we also take care of ourselves and our well-being as well as we take care of others. The Black community PBRG is looking into continue to support the community along with OLA and other PBRGs by enabling also our community internally to provide them the room to go out and support the communities in this situation as well. So very happy to see that we're all looking into creating this environment, but it's actually, in fact, a complex situation to manage, and I think it's when people come together in a better way.
For us here at Bank of America, one of the things that OLA and all of the employee networks have been really passionate about is, bringing people together and establishing communities and supporting each other, advancing both within the firm and helping our community partners. One of the things that we've been focused on is really helping to drive out some of the mental health components of these impacts of COVID, how it may potentially impact both families, relationships of extended family, local community, friends. And we've worked to establish what we typically used to do in person, but have really, similar to us, that have gone virtual, and have adopted that approach of getting all of our chapters educated on how to leverage technology to host these events that we normally would do in person, but host them virtually. And I thought it was pretty powerful when we looked at across the company. We used to host about 3,500 in-person events each year. And over the 2 months that we were shelter in place, we saw a decline about 76% of our events across the firm. But what we saw in participation was an increase of 4 times attendance. So what that really told us was that our associates were really longing to have these conversations, whether it was about mental health, whether it was about really talking about their current careers, or also having courageous conversations, which has really been a pillar of the firm, but has been brought to the forefront over the last several weeks to ensure that we're having the right dialogue, both for our Brown and Black community.
Hey guys, this is Giovanni here from Assembles at AT&T. So we basically have doubled down on our strategy. We are, we looked at what we've been doing, and we decided to amplify it. And one of the things that we've done is actually not do a lot of things during this time. So we had a lot of events that were planned and initiatives that were planned around during this time, but then, COVID happened. The civil unrest is taking place. So we basically took a step back from that perspective and pushed back a lot of these initiatives to a later day, so that we didn't want to compete for that spotlight. In fact, we thought that it was very important that a way for us to support was by pushing back our initiatives and making sure that what was currently in the spotlight in our society today could continue to remain there, because it's very intimately and important for all of us within Hacemos. So that's one of the things that we've done. The second thing is that more than ever, we have refreshing our mission and our passion and that drive to really continue to be active supporters of who we are as an organization, who we are as employees of AT&T, and just amplify those initiatives. So yeah, we're spending more time using technology. We're spending more time doing a lot of virtual meetings like this. One of the things that we were already doing, and we're going to amplify it even further, are these dinners that are called From Tolerating to Understanding. This was an initiative that was started back in 2016 by our CEO itself. And the concept is simple. A group of 10 individuals gather from different levels of the company, from different backgrounds, and they have conversations that matters. And the idea there is to put on the table tough, challenging topics that could be dialogue in an authentic way, in a safe space, in a private space, so that people have an opportunity to understand each other's point of view, have an opportunity to hear different perspectives. So that's an initiative that all of our members have been doing for the past 4 years, and we are amplifying that, and we continue to promote that, because we think it's a very, very meaningful initiative. Because at the end of the day, we could all get in the loudspeakers and echo the messages that all of our companies are doing so well, which is important. It's not one or the other. We have to do that simultaneously. I think it has to come back also at the individual level. We got to do steps to connect with other individuals, to connect with other communities, and to hear them all different, to hear their perspective and amplify their message.
Well, thank you, everyone, for sharing that. And I think, one of the things that we're seeing is that in spite of everything that's going on, organizations like each of yours are still continuing to do the work. They're still there. They're still supporting colleagues. They're still supporting the community, but facing some different challenges, things that you hadn't really had to think about before, things that, maybe had never presented themselves in the way that they are these days. So one of the things that I kind of wanted to follow up with was to hear a little bit from perhaps a few of you about how you're managing to still build that connection and to create those engagement opportunities with everything that's happening. And in particular, maybe if you could focus on words of wisdom that you'd share with some of your colleagues at other companies to help them if their groups are challenged sort of navigating COVID-19.
That's great. I think I will jump in on this one as well. So for us, as an Adelante leadership team, we meet every beginning of the year in person to talk through our plan for the year and our agenda, and we come up with a theme. Before all of this COVID and everything that's happening right now even occurred, our theme was our voice, our time. And the plan was to have everything linked to this theme, right? Every activity, every engagement, Hispanic Heritage Month would link to our voice, our time. And that really has become even more important now, right? We have a platform with everything that's happening. We have leadership's attention, their ear through all of this, right? They want to hear from us. And, I would say that theme of our voice, our time is even more relevant than we ever even imagined, because we have a platform, we are using our voices, and within our own leadership team, the frequency that we're connecting, right, and talking about what's happening, what we're hearing from our different membership across all of our locations has increased significantly. And we're having a continued conversation, not just with ourselves, but with our leaders, creating opportunities for community and communication more broadly. And we're seeing a bunch of hands raised, right? For folks who wanted to be a part of a community, wanted to feel supported, but maybe didn't know how to engage. We're seeing them raise their hand and raise their voices and be a part of this bigger movement. And so I think that leveraging our voice and encouraging everybody around you to lean into sharing their perspective because it matters and because it's important and because it's valued is a message we need to relay to everybody. And we're seeing the benefits of that messaging to our employees and our team members. There are more people speaking up and finding the confidence in themselves and each other to share their personal stories. I mentioned the town hall we had last week. It was amazing to hear one after another folks raising their hands on this Zoom call with hundreds of people on it to share their own personal experiences of inequality and injustice and how their family has been impacted, and to hear how diverse the experiences were even across our Latino employees was just amazing. And I would say if we weren't going through everything that we're going through now, we wouldn't have this opportunity. People wouldn't feel the need, the sense of urgency to elevate their voices. So for me, the words of wisdom is encourage everybody to use this opportunity to share their personal perspectives with either a coworker, with their manager, with somebody they just met for the first time, because people are listening and we have the opportunity to affect change.
Yeah, necessity is the mother of innovation, right? So it's we find ourselves in a very unique situation. And I'll give you a specific example, right? So every year, Assembles has a national conference where we all meet in person in Dallas at headquarters, and we bring the leaders of all our 41 chapters together. And it's a fantastic conference that we all look forward to. We spend a day putting faces to the different names that we see, and it creates a lot of energy and a lot of collaboration. That's not going to happen this year. And yes, it's sad, right? It makes you think like, wow, that we're used to having that warmth and connection, especially for us Latinos, right? So, but at the same time, it's an opportunity, because one of the deficiencies that we had as an organization, we still have, is in our digital space. So for example, Assembles was funded for the past 30 years, and we never had a public website. We had an internal website, but we didn't have a public website. So this year we activated a public website. This situation is challenging us to be better storytellers of our member stories, of our scholarship recipient stories, and how do we digitize that and to maximize the digital space, not only through our website, but also through our social media handles, so that we could not only be owners of our stories, but be those voices, right? Our voices, like you said earlier, of our stories, which are important. So yes, it's challenging. It's also a fantastic opportunity for all of our ERGs to think about how we could tackle and amplify our digital spaces so that we're able to amplify our voices, because all of our companies know this, right? That if you're not in the digital space, you're basically missing out on the great opportunities that you could have. And I'm very glad that us as a team decided to have a public website, and we're doing a much better job at capturing and digitizing our voices, our stories, so that we could share them with our community and our supporters.
Evelyn, I think you may be muted.
Yeah, I'm muted. Thank you. So one of the things I wanted to also share with the team, I think words of wisdom in our company, the ERGs or PDRGs in our case are have a seat on the table at the senior leadership team at the company. And, having the ability to bring the voices of all our communities through the leadership of the ERGs is allowing us to influence the thinking of our senior leaders and in shaping the future strategy, as Veronica was kind of saying. So I think it's an extreme opportunity that we leaders at the ERG level, we can influence our company's strategy, because now, there is a need to open and change some things just because of the environment we're in, which is also opening our way of thinking. How do we assess and look into things? And I think it's an important opportunity that we all should take. And the last thing I want to say is also something that we're doing is really creating that technical environment to continue to do the supporting work we're doing with our communities. We are continue to provide, support to employees right now from tutoring perspective. So we're creating space where our employees can support people through those. We're keeping webinars active. We're connecting with other communities for the Latino organizations as we go to try to avoid the gap, I would say, that this situation creates on our ability to connect with the community and enable other ways of doing it using the creativity of our own teams.
Thank you, Evelyn, and thank you all for sharing that. I want to take a moment here to maybe switch things up a little bit. So, we've been asking the audience, to put their questions into the Q&A box, and we've gotten a few that are related to what we're talking about right now. So if it's okay with the panelists, I'd like to kind of mix a few of these in here. So there is someone who's asking in particular about what advice you could share with those folks who have joined us today who aren't at necessarily organizations that have already a critical mass of Hispanic employees. And so they're wondering, what advice would you share to someone about really getting their networks or their resource group off the ground when there aren't enough Hispanics, say, to create a Hispanic group per se, but maybe it's more necessary to create a multicultural one where they bring together, allies from the African American community, the Asian community, and the Hispanic community, and use that as a starting point. So any thoughts on that?
So this is Shirley, and I would love to share a couple quick thoughts on this. So interestingly enough, for OLA in Bank of America, while we have a very strong Hispanic Latino base of associates across our 200,000 plus employees, we have a significant amount of members of our OLA chapters that are not Hispanic Latino. So what we have found is that advocacy is such an important part of being able to advance any of these topics, and understanding and education are critical. So we encourage members to join us from all backgrounds. And in fact, much of the advocacy that we have today is in fact from non-Hispanic Latinos, right? So our executive council for Bank of America's Hispanic executive leadership is led by Tom Montag, who leads our global commercial bank. And he is not Hispanic Latino, and he couldn't be a better advocate for us. So I would encourage those that are looking about establishing employee networks to recognize that while it's important to the uniqueness of our particular challenges, right, that are only unique to the Hispanic Latino community, the reality is that we can create so many bridges if we were, opening up to include as many individuals as we can that want to see an organization that looks like the people we serve, regardless of what organization you're in. It is important for us to appear like the people we serve. And until we get that kind of diversity, we're really not in a place of being able to truly understand and how to effectively serve whoever those constituents are. So if you're starting from the grounds roots level, include everyone. And that will start the dialogue to where you're saying, well, what areas of our business aren't effectively representative of a diverse population? Maybe we can affect that change there. And then there's a broader growth of individuals across the entire firm. And then those ERGs continue to grow. I mean, for Bank of America, we have, some 11 ERGs that are from, Hispanic Latino efforts to the Black executives to, associates who are serving for disabilities, and we have individuals who are caregivers. I mean, so many different important networks that are critical to the foundations of being a great place to work. And there's lots that can be done with just starting from one place, right, and getting a group together to be activated, regardless of what that particular initiative is.
So I've had the pleasure of helping 5 companies start their ERG where there wasn't one. They started their Latino ERG where there wasn't one. And it was the same challenge, right? It was the same challenge. Hey, there's less than 100 identified employees that are identify themselves as Latino, and the numbers are few, right? As compared to, for example, someone like Bank of America, someone like AT&T, where hacemos, we have 10,000 members to 41 chapters, right? And when you have those such numbers, you could deliver on great impact, like $3 million worth of scholarship for the past 20 years, right? That's something that you could do when you have critical mass. But what I would argue is that you got to focus on the opportunity. Even if you don't have massive numbers, right? What the opportunity is on focusing on the quality, not the quantity. So one of the companies that I've helped out had less than 50 employees as Latinos that wanted to start the ERG. Okay, so then I had them focused on what the opportunity was. That means that the 50 of you should know each other intimately, should know exactly what everybody's doing in their respective business units, should know each other's name, should know each other's family. There's a great opportunity when you have a small BERG to increase the quality and the engagement that you don't necessarily have when you have big numbers. For example, in hacemos AT&T, to give you that contrast, we have 10,000 members. Okay, great, but engagement is less than 2,000 people. All right. So, and do I know every single one of our 2,000 members that are engaged? No, I don't. But I know a great majority, but I don't. So, focus on the opportunity. Yeah. Okay. You're small, but be mighty. Be mighty. You have a great opportunity to be mighty. I remember, for example, one of the companies that, again, less than 50 individuals, and they were able to champion the translation of their website from English to Spanish. And there was an immediate business impact for that business. Mighty results from a small, little, mighty group of committed individuals towards the same mission. So don't feel that because your company doesn't have enough Latino professionals in there that you don't have the ability to be impactful and create waves of business impact from where you are. The most important thing is to start now. Don't delay for the right numbers. Start now. Start today. Make it happen.
If I could add as well, just one comment. It's also important to find a champion. Regardless of the size of your organization, you need a champion at the leadership levels to really build a sustainable ERG or BRG organization. So understanding who your senior leaders are and who has passion for people and community is important. And it takes just one, right? Finding one champion to be that elevated voice for your group and for you, whether you're 3 people or 10,000, right? To get that sustainability of and that movement going within your organization. So I think that's a big just piece of advice I would share as well.
So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about sustainability. As we're talking about what do you do when you don't have this critical mass? How do you get going? But once you get going, I'm seeing a couple questions coming in that are talking about advice for really sustaining these networks and these groups. And especially right now in the time of COVID-19, when many companies are talking about budget cuts and really thinking, forcing different units to really think about, what stays or what doesn't, given the fact that the global pandemic happened, and we're seeing all of these things that have had a resulting economic effect. So if any of you would like to weigh in on sustainability and its relationship to COVID, that'd be great.
Yeah, so if I can start in one of the things that I think is super important for sustainability is to, again, I guess, keep that communication line open with your sponsors to make sure that there is full understanding of what's the environment. And I think, you know, Shirley mentioned the constituents that are outside of our company and who are we serving. I think that's another key point to keep in mind and bring that back to the table. One of the things that BMS is doing in terms of sustainability, we're creating policies to ensure that in our hiring process, we keep a diverse slate of talent coming in, that we keep a diverse slate of interviewers coming in. So we have that continuation and looking into maintain that diversity included in our workforce. And we're trying to provide extensive training to other people aside from the members of the organization to ensure that there is an understanding of the importance of this diverse and inclusion environment. When it comes to the ERGs, it's maintaining that active engagement through the multiple activities that we have, making our teams connect with that real source of issues that are related to COVID-19. And then in the comeback, which I think is the other piece we need to start talking about, is when we come back from this COVID situation, how do we come back? How do we make sure we have a transition into the new ways of working, which is not going to be the same as before, bringing those ERGs with us. And in the OLA organization in BMS, you know, most of what we're doing is really connecting with the Latino community internally and externally, and trying to collaborate and making partnership with others outside of our business to strengthen those alliances and see how can we provide that as a platform for continuation and sustainability.
I'd like to add one point here, and certainly related to COVID, but I think it's even more a broader discussion about employee networks and how to sustain them. And that's one of the things that we're really focused on is succession planning. And, you know, when you think about, Giovanni mentioned that he has, you know, north of 40 ERGs. We have 38 chapters across the entire country. That's a really important part of sustainability, is to really truly have succession planning terms. This way you have the ability to recruit talent, sustain, you know, the right energy level of the employee network, ensure that individuals, I call it, you know, don't have burnout. And, you know, what happens in a lot of cases is that because we're so passionate about this work, because this is certainly for us a volunteer effort, you know, people don't want to cut ties unless there's, you know, some dire thing occurring. And so what ultimately happens is these individuals, instead of, you know, letting go of the responsibility in a proper timeline, may very well just lose energy and momentum. And so then that we start to see chapters potentially lose the amount of energy and influence that they're having within their local communities. So, you know, beyond COVID, I think that it's really important for us to be having conversations about succession planning, particularly for our ERG. We have literally been having dialogues and interviews with individuals that have interest in expanding their responsibilities during this time, and having other individuals move on to other responsibilities as their efforts within their day jobs have been really increased, whether that's because of the Paycheck Protection Act or other initiatives that the firm has had to address. So just wanted to throw that in there because I think it's a broader theme that I think we really need to continue to keep at the forefront for ERGs to stay current.
I want to interject for just a moment because I'm seeing, you know, the feed come through, and as a result of what you all are saying, other questions are popping up, right? And a number of folks have really asked about two things. in particular about how to get middle management buy-in for participation in employee resource groups. And the second is how can you successfully incorporate folks that are line employees or hourly employees into the work of the network when they often can't take the time away from their day job to work on something that's a volunteer effort, or at least that's the perception within their organization. So if you all could address that, be great.
Well, you have to pivot. You have to pivot from the mentality that you're doing volunteer work. If all you're doing is volunteer work, guess what? People are going to look at you as a volunteer, and they're only going to call upon you when they have an opportunity for you to volunteer. Volunteering is good, I get it, but we have to pivot away from that mentality that it's not just exclusive volunteering that you're doing, right? You're contributing with your time, your talent, and your treasure. Got it. That's good. But it's very important that you have a conversation with your leaders on how this is part of your development as a professional and as an individual. It's important that you have a conversation around how the work and the leadership skills that you demonstrate in your ERG translate to the business world, to your professional development. And often we lose sight of that. And it's always a constant reminder that we give to our members who are faced with the situation, right? Oh, my manager doesn't understand what I'm doing. Okay, they don't understand it. Well, let's articulate it. How are we articulating this? How are you articulating your story in here? This is part of your professional development. When, one of the hardest things you could do, and every BRG leader knows this, if you can lead a bunch of volunteers, especially Latinos, right? That we love to give our opinions on everything, right? And it's like herding cats at times. And if you could lead a group of volunteers to deliver impact, then you know what? Guess what? That means that you could do the same thing when you're a manager and you have direct reports, when you have a P&L, when you're leading a business unit. Because if you could do it with volunteers, where the focus has to be on how do you inspire, how do you motivate, then absolutely, then you could certainly then translate that skill set into the business world very easily and deliver the same impact, if not even more. So often we really got to be very intentional and create clarity in that the work that we're doing is not just simply volunteering. It is a lot of professional and personal development that can easily translate into business impact.
And I would add to that too. It's about adding structure and process and organization to the ERG efforts as well. What we found to work extremely successfully over this last year and a half or so is across all of the ERGs within PepsiCo, HR and the diversity engagement team have partnered to create definition and structure to all of the teams, right? So they're driving a consistency in terms of what the organization structure looks like for each ERG. Each ERG has a senior executive sponsor at the highest level within the company as a champion assigned, right? So it's part of their objectives, their plan for the year that they play this leadership role and be this voice for this team and guide the team through their efforts through the year. And this formality, this elevating it as a role, to your point, Giovanni, not a volunteer effort, a role that you get nominated for because we are looking to develop you and develop this critical talent base. It has elevated this opportunity for our employees. And as I've said earlier, we've had all these individuals raise their hands, be nominated, want to be nominated, and feeling good about, hey, my manager supports me because this is important to the organization. This is a real role, not a volunteer effort, the way we typically thought of it before. And adding that formality and structure actually gives permission, right? It gives permission to people to talk to their manager about it because it's something that's real, that's tangible, that's organized, that delivers business results and impact to the company. And we even have annual operating plans that are developed every year by each ERG and presented to the leads within their sector and organization, right? Again, bringing structure and leadership to the process that we were already doing as ERG members. But that has really changed the way managers at all levels view the role of ERG membership and leadership.
And I want to add, on the manufacturing side, I think it's a question that, can be addressed in that way. The tone of the top, on top of what you're saying, how our sponsors and executive sponsors set the tone in what is the expectation of our ERGs when it comes to the relationship with the business and how we can enable the business to improve and as a mechanism as part of the ERGs or BBRGs. And that goes an accountability from the goals and objective perspective on our business unit leaders, to your point before, Giovanni, where we can see, and I have seen personally, the power of that motivation coming from a general manager on a facility where the people are from multiple layers, even operators being the leaders of that particular initiative in that particular manufacturing site and providing that opportunity to them. But it has to come from the top in creating that space where we can help also our managers understand their role in people development and their role on diversity and inclusion when it comes to our community or any other underrepresented community in the organization.
Yeah, and I would just say that, a lot of the work that we have focused on is in building the business case. So where we know that Hispanic Latinos, particularly for our banking industry, are really the driving force in the future in terms of economic buying power. So the business imperative for us to have an activated Hispanic Latino workforce is critical to ensuring that as Latinos within the U.S. Continue to advance in success in their businesses, in financial wellness, and in homeownership, that we have individuals that can help to serve them. And particularly what I find that's very powerful in addressing middle market or middle management is particularly the employee sat impact that is created by being part of an ERG. And historically, for Bank of America, members of employee networks have traditionally scored 5 points higher in overall satisfaction with the firm just by being part of an employee network. So there's so much that we do that is in addition to the support and development that middle market managers do, that we have really driven home this value prop and created this focus point so that there is additional support for associates being able to participate.
So I think that's a great point, Shirley, to kind of maybe have you expand a little bit about what you all are doing when it comes to creating welcoming and inclusive environments, right? Because it's not just about middle management's responsibility in developing their talent, but it's also about getting middle management to understand the value of diversity and inclusion in all aspects of the business. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you all are doing as an organization, as a group, to help Bank of America with creating a welcoming and inclusive environment?
I think one of the things that, as I mentioned, I think it's a continuation of what we've talked about. For many years, we have recognized certain patterns that are happening within the economy and in the U.S. And we've also identified that our community in a lot of ways also needs support in order to be able to get to where we are trying to achieve. For many clients, our goal is to obviously have them achieve the American dream. Many want to be small business owners. Many want to have their own homes. Many want to be able to send their children to school. Many of those reasons, but particularly for us to create an inclusive workplace, our goal has really been to not just see it as a Hispanic Latino initiative or Hispanic Latino objective, but recognizing that we as a minority have a huge opportunity to address certain areas of where we advance people that look like us in leadership roles, as well as within just in general the diverse workforce. And I think our role has been in working with all of the other employee networks and trying to support each other, not just advancing one particular initiative, but understanding what are the particular concerns of women in business or women in employee networks within the firm. What are our Black leadership teammates focused on? What is our LGBTQ plus community focused on? how do we all layer together in order to advance diversity and inclusion within the firm. And I can honestly say that because we have employee network leadership at the helm, we have an executive that leads all the ENs across the franchise, that it makes it very easy for us to have these dialogues and forums. So we actually collectively as a team join a call every single month and talk about what are the initiatives and efforts that each one of us are focused on, how maybe we could partner together. A lot of what we see is actually we host joint events. So it's very, we have the same workforce. So oftentimes they may very well be splitting themselves. They see themselves as a woman, as a banker, and they also see themselves as Hispanic Latino. So instead of splitting those resources, we just bring them together. And honestly, those are the best events. So, if I could give any advice to other ERG leaders, is this notion of, instead of being in the silo of focusing on just maybe initiatives that are important to us or that we think are important to us, if we can collaborate and find threads that all join us together, we just create much more impact across an organization.
And I think now, too, it's super timely as we're thinking about everything that's happening around the United States, right? What we saw happening with COVID-19 was sort of this anti-Asian and anti-immigrant backlash as a result of the unknown around the virus. And now with everything that has been happening in terms of social justice and some of the issues in the United States, we're seeing Latinx for Black Lives trending on Twitter, and really communities coming together to show their allyship and to really work together, right? And I know there were a few questions that were asking, like, how can we do that, right? And I think it starts with just having that conversation, making that ask, opening the door to the possibility of that. So we have just a few minutes left, and I have one final question to ask, and that's our final thought. And if you could all just kind of share in 30 seconds or less, sort of your final thought. Is it resilience, support, or community? Which word do you think describes how your ERG moves into the future, and why?
For me, it's community. It is about strengthening our sense of community, expanding our sense of community. I love what Shirley was just talking about around connecting our ERGs and our diversity cohorts together. We're very much doing the same thing, and we're seeing the power and the scale of what we can do when we bring our voices together for this good purpose, right, of diversity and equality. And so for me, it's community, using our voices together broadly to show our sense of community, to show our support to one another, and to elevate the notion of community even within our employee bases.
Yeah, I think this is Evelyn. I think it's community as well for me, and encompassed with collaboration. And as Shirley was saying, is bringing everyone together for the same purpose and supplying that benefit to the organization and also to the community. So we have employees, we serve patients in BMS, and we also have another groups that are around us in the community that we want to serve to and improve. So it's proven, I think, on this time that the collaboration of the PDRGs is leading to an amazing result when it comes to the different things we're all aimed for. So I think community.
And I would say community as well. I mean, we just recently announced a $1 billion 4-year commitment to the Black and Brown community. And I couldn't think of a more important time for OLA in particular to ensure that we are good stewards of the funds that the firm has earmarked, and that we're putting those resources in the hands of our community in the right way, and that it has the most impact. So certainly I would say community for us.
And I would say all those words need to be infused with leadership. At the end of the day, it's very important that we start where we are, that we take consistent, meaningful, impactful steps towards making a difference wherever we went. We can't change the world, but you can certainly take steps to change somebody else's world. And as I think about the call to action as leaders, right? I mean, we as leaders, we're not called to hold the title and rest in our laurels. We always have a responsibility to do more as leaders. I think one of the things that all of us should be thinking about as employee resource groups or business resource groups. It's how do we pivot from employee and business resource groups to leadership resource groups? How do we get our members to be looked upon as already leaders? We're not high potentials. We are high performers. And that's how we need to be recognized internally by our members and our companies as we continue to have impact.
Well, thank you. Thank you all, Giovanna, Shirley, Evelyn, and Veronica, for your time, the great insights that you shared with us today, and for your continued commitment to the Hispanic community through the work each of your ERGs is doing. And, you know, we are about out of time. And I just want to say a few more remarks before we end, and that is to thank you again to our co-host sponsors, PepsiCo and Target, for their continued support and partnership. And thank you as well to all of the HACR annual symposium sponsors. Without your commitment to us, our work would not be possible and we would be unable to fulfill our mission. So thank you so much for your support. And thank you most of all to the attendees for taking time out of their busy day to join us for this discussion. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of the questions, but we tried to incorporate as many of them into the discussion as possible. And we hope that you enjoyed today's presentation. Be sure to follow us on HACR on all of our social media platforms to stay up to date with the latest news, to see the schedule for the upcoming webinars, and receive important details about our 2 virtual events that we'll be hosting later this year. The webinar schedule and registration information is also available on our website. And post-webinar, once we end, you'll receive a survey that will automatically pop up. Please complete the survey so that we can deliver content that best fits your needs. So thank you again for joining us today, and we will see you again soon. Bye.